By Sri Lanka's best internet package for online learning and online working with many amazing offers. Call 1212 for more information. Sri Lanka Telecom.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Tonight, doing it right. After a long, drawn-out battle, the combined Air Force and Navy efforts pay off as empty New Diamond fire finally doused. All in a day's work. Anti-drug operations in the Western Province net more than 300 drug suspects in 24 hours. Two-horse race. The 74th anniversary of the birth of the United National Party held today amidst a continuing tussle over new leadership choice. Here comes the rain. Met Department warns of severe rains of more than 100 millimetres, while landslide warnings issued in several districts. All that and much more coming up on First at 9, this Sunday the 6th of September 2020.
Nava sunlight sakura. Then Dikukal Pavatina Sakura Mal Suandin.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammika Ekanaika. Let's start with your local stories. Navy Commander Vice Admiral Nishant Ulugetan announced today that the deadly fire aboard the empty New Diamond fuel tanker has been brought to an end following 3 days of combined firefighting efforts by Sri Lanka Naval and Air Force personnel. The fire was doused using both water and chemical fire suppressants, and fears of a major environmental disaster has finally been allayed as salvage efforts are to begin in the next few days.
The Greek-owned oil tanker MT New Diamond, which has been crippled by a major fire for the past 3 days, is currently located 33 nautical miles off the Ampara coast in deep seas. Although the vessel had been towed by tugboats to a distance of 40 nautical miles away from the coast, it had however drifted closer to shore to its current position since then. While the Sri Lanka Air Force has been engaged in dousing the fire from the air with chemical fire suppressants, the Sri Lanka Navy has been spraying seawater on the ship in order to cool down its heated hull.
MI 17 වර්ගයේ හෙලිකොප්ටර් යානය විසින් ගිනි නිවීමේ කටයුතු සඳහා ගුවනින් වතුර ඉසීම පූර්ණ කාලීනව සිදු කළ අතර අද සැප්තැම්බර් 6 වෙනිදා මෙම අවස්ථාව වන විට ගුවනින් ගින්න සඳහා වතුර ඉසීමේ මෙහෙයුම් 176ක් පමණ සිදු කරනු ලැබුවා. මෙහිදී වතුර ලීටර් 4,40,000ක් පමණ මේ වන විට ගුවනේ සිට මුදා හැර තිබෙනවා. ඊයේ සවස් යාමේ වන විට ශ්‍රී ලංකා ගුවන් හමුදාවේ නිරීක්ෂණ යානා මගින් නිරීක්ෂණය කරනු ලැබුවා මෙම ගින්නේ නෞකාවේ බඳ ප්‍රදේශයේ ඇති ගින්න සෑහෙන දුරට නිවී ගියත් ඇතුළත තාමත් ගිනිදැල් පවතින බවත් ඊයේ රාත්‍රියේදී ගුවන් හමුදාපති එයා මාර්ෂල් සුමංගල ඩයස් මහතා ගුවන් මෙහෙයුම් අධ්‍යක්ෂක එයා වයිස් මාර්ෂල් රවි ජයසිංහ මහතා සහ ශ්‍රී ලංකා ගුවන් හමුදාවේ ප්‍රධාන ගිනි නිලධාරී තුමා සාකච්ඡාවක් කරනු ලැබුවා. මෙහිදී ගුවන් හමුදාව සතු ප්‍රධානතම ගුණාංගය එහෙමත් නැත්නම් ගුවනින් මෙම අනතුරක් ලක් වූ ස්ථානයකට ළඟා වීමේ හැකියාව උපයෝග කරගනිමින් ගුවනින් ගිනි නිවීම සඳහා ඩ්‍රයි කෙමිකල් පවුඩර් ඉසීමට තීරණය කරා. මෙම කාර්යය අද උදෑසන බෙල් 212 වර්ගයේ යානයක් යොදාගෙන ප්‍රථම වරට ගුවන් හමුදාව අත්හදා බැලුවා.
Meanwhile, the ship's owner, Athens-based New Shipping Limited, has appointed Singaporean company Smith Singapore Limited to carry out salvage operations. Accordingly, a team of British and Dutch experts have already been dispatched to the country to carry out the salvage operations and arrived at the Matal Rajapaksa International Airport at 6:55 this morning on board a special charter flight. The 10-member team includes operational specialists, disaster assessors, legal advisors, and insurance officers. Following PCR tests on arrival, the team was airlifted to Kalmune, after which they were transported to the vessel's location by Sri Lanka Navy speedboat. An 18-member team, including the Chief Fire Officer of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority, has been overseeing the firefighting operations. The 20 crewmen rescued by the Sri Lanka Navy are currently being kept in isolation aboard its advanced offshore petrol vessel SLNS Sindurala and have been provided with communication facilities to keep in contact with their families. Meanwhile, a discussion was headed by Attorney General Dapula de Oliveira at the Attorney General's Department to iron out the details regarding the reimbursement of expenses incurred by local institutions in the ongoing firefighting operations. Navy Commander Vice Admiral Nishant Ulugetanna, Sri Lanka Ports Authority Chairman General Retired Dayarat Nayaka, Director General of Merchant Shipping Ajit Seneviratna, and Marine Environment Protection Authority Chairperson Darshini Lahandapura were also present at the discussion. Speaking to the media following the meeting, Navy Commander Vice Admiral Nishant Ulugetanna announced that the fire has now been completely doused, but a risk still remains of more fires cropping up due to the overheating of the ship's hull.
මෙතන ඇත්තම සාකච්ඡා වුණේ අපේ ඒ ගින්න නිවීමේ කටයුතුවලදී අපේ අනිකුත් ආයතන විසින් කොච්චර පීඩම් කරලා තියෙනවද ඒ පීඩම් අපේ ලංකාවට ගන්නව නම් ඒ මොන වගේ ක්‍රමවේදයක්ද අපි පාවිච්චි කරන්න ඕනේ සහ දැනට ගින්නේ පවතින තත්ත්වය පිළිබඳව මේ වෙනකොට සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම නිමලා තියෙනවා නමුත් ඒක දැනට ඒ නෞකාවේ ප්ලේට් වල තියෙන උෂ්ණත්වය මත සමහර විට ආපහු ගිනි ගැනීමේ අවදානමක් තියෙනවා නමුත් අපිට හරියට කියන්න බෑ.
Enjoy a very smooth shave with the Bic Easy 2 razor. Bic Easy 2.
With continuous operations being conducted against drug racketeers and underworld figures, a wanted suspect pertaining to a child abuse case in Moratuwa was apprehended by the Kalutara South Police. During the arrest, the police found 3 rounds of anti-aircraft ammunition as well as drugs. Meanwhile, police have also nabbed over 300 suspects with regards to drugs-related offences in just 24 hours from within the Western Province.
358 suspects have been arrested in raids conducted in the Western Province during the 24 hours starting from 6 a.m. yesterday to 6 a.m. today. 340 of the arrestees were apprehended in connection with drug-related incidents, while the remaining 18 suspects were arrested pertaining to other illegal activities. During the 24-hour window of raids, 482.274 grams of heroin and 349.730 grams of cannabis were also seized by the police. Meanwhile, a suspect who attempted to throw heroin, 10 mobile phone batteries and 36,000 rupees in cash into the Velikada prison was arrested today from the area of Sivalipura in Borella by the Colombo Crimes Division. Investigations revealed that the suspect had attempted to throw 2.72 grams of heroin into prison upon instructions of an individual identified as Suddhi. The police said that the suspect Suddhi had arranged for contraband to be lobbed into the prison in order to provide her mother, identified as Hamina, who is remanded at the Velikada prison over drug offences, with narcotics. In the meantime, 13 mobile phones, 7 SIM cards, 150 batteries and 2 hands-free units were found in the women's section of the Velikada prison during a special search operation that was conducted based on information given by the Prison Intelligence Unit. Commissioner of Administration, Rehabilitation and Skills Development of the Department of Prisons, Chandra Ekanayaka, said that an internal investigation is underway on the inmates who were occupants of the cells from where the contraband was found. Meanwhile, a wanted suspect pertaining to a child abuse case in Moratuwa was apprehended by the Kalutara South Police yesterday. Identified as 22-year-old Sumudu Lakshan, the suspect is also alleged to have maintained links with organized criminal groups. He was arrested from his friend's house located in the area of Abhayamavata at the Central Junction in Kalutara. Police have also found 3 rounds of anti-aircraft ammunition, a camouflage bag similar to those used by the army, a hand grenade pouch, a computer, as well as 5 grams of cannabis in the residence. Elsewhere in Matale, the police anti-corruption unit arrested 2 suspects with 2 grams of heroin and 250 grams of Kerala cannabis in their possession as they were transporting the narcotics in a 3-wheeler. The suspects had concealed the drugs within the front headlight of the vehicle. The duo was produced before the Matale Magistrates Court and they were remanded until the 16th of this month. In Payagala, 4 suspects were arrested yesterday over dealing drugs in the area for a period of time. The police found 32 grams of heroin on the suspects. In the meantime, Uragasman Handia police arrested 6 suspects over drug racketeering in the areas of Mandoravala and Ambagha Junction with 5 grams of heroin. It has been revealed that the husband of one of the suspects is currently in remand custody over a similar offence. They too had used the Easy Cash platform in drug dealing and had 39,500 rupees of drug money in their possession.
Now, people in certain districts are told to brace themselves for rainfall in the excess of 100 millimeters. A woman also died today as strong winds caused a tree to fall on her. What's more, the National Building Research Organization issued landslide warnings for several districts. The Department of Meteorology, however, expects some reprieve from the prevailing weather conditions tomorrow.
Several areas of the island were struck with heavy rainfall and strong winds, bringing about a change in dry weather conditions last Tuesday. In the Kalutara district, a large rock fell into a precipice located below the Molkava Kelinkanda main road last night. No casualties were reported from the incident. However, steps were taken to evacuate 50 people from 13 families from the area. They were temporarily housed at the Kosgulana temple. Elsewhere in Bonavista, in Gaul, a 59-year-old woman died after strong winds brought down a kitul tree on her this afternoon. In the meantime, the heavy winds that blew across Devata in Gaul today damaged several fisheries outlets. In another development, the Department of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources requested the fishing community to refrain from venturing out to sea in small boats and single-day vessels, as the wind speeds in both deep and shallow sea areas could increase up to 70 km per hour. With the enhancement of inclement weather in the island, the National Building Research Organization has issued landslide warnings for the districts of Colombo, Gaul, Kalutara, Kegaul and Ratnapura. According to the weather forecast issued by the Department of Meteorology for tomorrow, the prevailing showery and windy conditions over the island are expected to temporarily reduce. However, showers or thunder showers are expected at several places in western, Sabaragamu and central provinces. What's more, Director General of the Meteorology Department Atula Karunanayaka says that heavy rainfall above 100 millimeters can be expected in the districts of Gaul, Matara, Mana and Mullatiu.
We will see you shortly after this break. Stay tuned.
Ceylon Bank, the bank with a heart.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, the unveiling of the English edition of the book Gotabaya, authored by Defence Secretary Major General Kamal Gunaratne, was worked off this evening at the Kularatne Hall at the Ananda College, Colombo, under the patronage of Chief Guest President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Also present at the event were Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, Minister Chamal Rajapaksa, Cabinet Ministers and State Ministers. During the event, Defence Secretary Major General Kamal Gunaratne presented copies of both the Sinhala and English editions of the book to the Head of State and the Prime Minister. The event was also made colourful with several cultural performances by popular Sri Lankan artists and performers. The Pentagon says that Sri Lanka is one of the countries considered by China to set up military facilities in an attempt to allow its military to project and sustain military power at greater distances. In its annual report titled Military and Security Developments Involving the People's Republic of China 2020, that was submitted to the US Congress, the Pentagon said that China has likely considered locations for the People's Liberation Army logistics facilities in Myanmar, Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, the United Arab Emirates, Kenya, Seychelles, Tanzania, Angola and Tajikistan. The reports say, quote, beyond its current base in Djibouti, China is very likely already considering and planning additional overseas military logistics facilities to support naval, air and ground forces. Pentagon says a global Chinese military logistics network could interfere with US military operations and provide flexibility to support offensive operations against the United States. The country's oldest political party, the United National Party, celebrated its 74th anniversary today in the backdrop of the party's most severe election reversal last month. As the party struggles with the calls for internal changes from its members, the choice of the party's next leader remains a hard one: youth or seniority, namely Ruwan Wijewardene or Karu Jayasuriya.
The United National Party, which was formed on September 6, 1946 and headed by the first Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, D.S. Senanayake, is a party that has produced 7 Prime Ministers and 3 Executive Presidents. In celebration of the party's 74th anniversary, which falls today, a special commemoration ceremony was held under the patronage of party leader Ranil Wickremesinghe at the party headquarters, Sirikota. A ceremonial laying of floral tributes at the statues of the party's former leaders was held as part of the ceremony. No media coverage was permitted of the main ceremony. However, several former UMP parliamentarians addressed the media after the event.
මම දැන් අපි ආගමික වතාවත් වලට මුල් තැන දීලා පක්ෂයේ සැමරීම සිදු කළා.
බුදුමල්ලාට සමරන්න පුළුවන්ද දැන් හොඳ කට්ටිය අනිත් පැත්තේ?
පෙරදුනයි කියන එක අදාළත්වයක් නැහැ පක්ෂික අනාගතයේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් ක්‍රියා කරන්න. ඒ අනුව අපි ක්‍රියා කරගෙන යනවා.
බුදුමල්ලාගේ මේ නායකත්වයේ වෙනසක් වෙන්නේ කවදද? තාම දිනයක් නැද්ද?
ඒ ගැන කලබල වෙන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. ඒකට අවශ්‍ය කටයුතු අපි කරමින් සිටිනවා.
ගුවන් විජේවර්ධන මහත්තයාට එතකොට දැන් දෙන්න සූදානමක් තියෙනවද තරුණ නායකයෙක්?
මම එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂය වෙනුවෙන් ඉදිරිපත් වෙලා තිබෙන්නේ. එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ ආරක්ෂාව සඳහා. ඒක මගේ යුතුයකමක් හැටියට මම සලකලා තිබෙනවා. ඒ වෙනුවෙන් මම ඉදිරිපත් වෙලා තිබෙනවා.
අරු ජයසූරිය මැතිතුමාට මොකද වෙන්නේ?
අවුරුදු 80 කෙනෙකුට වඩා අවුරුදු 41ක 45ක කෙනෙක් හොඳයි කියන එක ඉල්ලීමක් තියෙනවා. අපි කියන්නේ එතුමා අපිට උපදේශකෙක් හැටියට ඉන්න. රුවන් විජේවර්ධන මැතිතුමාට උපදේශකත්වයෙන් සහයෝගය දීලා එතුමාත් ඒ සහයෝගය ලබා දෙනවා නම් තමයි වඩාත් වටින්නේ. අපි එතුමාගෙන් ඉල්ලන්නේ ඒක.
ඔබතුමා නායකත්වයට සූදානම්ද?
පක්ෂ තීරණය කරනවා නම් මට බාර දෙනවා කියලා මම ඒක අරගෙන කරනවා. මම නායකත්වය කියන එක මට හොඳට පළපුරුදු තියෙන කෙනෙක්. ඒක ක්‍රීඩාවේ දේශපාලනයේ මම දකිනවා යම් අඩුපාඩු අපේ එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ තියෙනවා. ඒව හදාගෙන ඉස්සරහට යන්න ඕනේ. හැබැයි මම තාම හිතන්නේ කරු ජයසූරිය මහත්තයාව ගෙනල්ලා කෙටි කාලයකට ඇවිල්ලා මේ පක්ෂයේ බාර අරගෙන රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්තයාගේ අනුශාසනා ඇතුව අපි මේ පක්ෂය ඉස්සරහට අරන් යන්න ඕනේ. අපි 7-8 දෙනායකට ඉඳගෙන ගමට ගිහිල්ලා මිනිස්සු අතරට යන්න ඕනේ.
ඔබතුමාලට හිතෙන්නේ නැද්ද මේකට මේ තරුණ නායකයෙක් ඕනේ කියලා?
තරුණම කියලා ඕනේ නෑනේ. දැන් ජනාධිපතිතුමා තරුණද? අගමැතිතුමා තරුණද? එතකොට දැන් පොහොට්ටුවේ නායකයෝ තරුණද? එතකොට එහෙම හිතන්න එපා. නායකයෝ කියන එක තරුණම වෙන්න ඕනේ නෑ. දක්ෂතාවයේ තියෙන්න ඕනේ. නායකයෝ කියන්නේ කැප්ටන්ස්ලාත් ඉන්නවා, ලීඩර්ස්ලාත් ඉන්නවා. කැප්ටන්ලා මේ ටීම් එක කැප්ටන් කරනවා, ලීඩර්ස්ලා තමයි දිනන්නේ. මේ පක්ෂයේ හැමදාම ආවනේ හොඳ ලීඩර්ස්ලා.
ඔබතුමාට නායකත්වයේ බාර දෙන්න ප්‍රමාදයි මේගොල්ලෝ.
නෑ ඒක මම අපේ සියලු දෙනාම සාකච්ඡා කළා. හරි සමාදානය වෙලා හරි තීරණයකට එන්න තමයි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ. ඉතින් මම හිතනවා ඒක මේ එන සතියේ ඒක හරියයි කියලා වань. අපේ පාක්ෂිකයන්ගේ ලොකු ඉල්ලීමක් තියෙනවා මට ඉදිරිපත් වෙන්න කියලා. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා තමයි නායකතුමාත් එක්කත් කතා කරලා ඊට පස්සේ මම ඉදිරිපත් වුණේ.
සූදානම් නායකත්වයේ බාර ගන්න.
අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මම සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම සූදානම් නායකත්වයේ බාර ගන්න.
Moving on with other local stories, a total of 65 Sri Lankans were repatriated from Qatar and Dubai today. They were all subjected to PCR tests and directed to quarantine centres. Meanwhile, 87 people who had completed the quarantine process at the Rajagiri Ayurvedic Quarantine Centre in Colombo were also given the all-clear to leave the facility this morning. In the meantime, a total of 6 new COVID-19 cases were confirmed from the island yesterday. Among them is an inmate undergoing quarantine at the Kandakadu Rehabilitation Centre, while the remaining are identified as Sri Lankan returnees who had been repatriated from Bahrain, Qatar and India. The Government Information Centre said that they are all undergoing quarantine. As things stand, the country's total number of active coronavirus cases stand at 185, while the total number of recoveries is at 2,925. The All Ceylon Egg Producers Association has agreed to reduce the price of an egg by 2 rupees from tomorrow. The decision was taken following a discussion between representatives of the association and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Issues of egg producers had been discussed at the meeting, which took place at the Prime Minister's Carlton House in Tangle yesterday. The president of the association says that the new price of an egg could be between 21 and 22 rupees, while assuring that there is no shortage of eggs in the country. In other local news, the deadline given to candidates who lost at the general election 2020 to declare their assets and liabilities expires today. The candidates were given the opportunity to hand over their assets and liabilities declarations to returning officers or the Election Commission. According to the Assets and Liabilities Act, defeated candidates are required to submit their assets and liabilities declarations within 3 months of submitting their nominations for the election. We will see you shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, the food and beverage counters are expected to have more retail activities during the coming week at the Colombo Bourse. Sri Lankan shares ended lower for a second straight session last Friday, with consumer staples stocks contributing to over half of this session's losses. Now, let's take a look at what we can expect at the Colombo Stock Exchange in the coming week.
For the last week, market went through the very stagnant session because market continuously dropped for 4 consecutive days with a Poya holiday also coming in, and most of the high net worths and the funds were silent as we mentioned last week. And for this week, we are predicting retail activities most on the food and beverage counters. Then we might see some sort of foreign selling will absorb by the local counterparties, and the market point of view, we might see the stagnant for the market movement for the next week as well, with some sort of foreign selling also will continue on the selective banking and the food and beverage counters.
India is set to overtake Brazil as the world's second most COVID-19 affected country, with a staggering 90,000 plus new cases and over 1,000 deaths in a single day in the last 24 hours. But what's most disturbing is that the country has reportedly taken only 13 days to move from 3 million cases to its current 4 million, as the Indian government moves to reopen the economy in the face of severe contraction.
India added more than 90,000 cases of the novel coronavirus today, a global daily record, according to data from the Federal Health Ministry. There were 90,632 new cases in the 24 hours to Sunday, according to the data from the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, while the number of deaths rose by 1,065 to 70,626. The country is set to pass Brazil on Monday as the second most affected country by total infections, and will be behind only the United States, which has 6.4 million cases and nearly 193,000 deaths. The jump to more than 4 million cases comes only 13 days after India reached 3 million cases, accelerating sharply from the more than 100 days it took to increase by the previous 1 million. India has logged the world's largest daily coronavirus caseload for almost a month as its government pushes the opening up of businesses to revive a sharply contracting economy. In Australia, more than a dozen demonstrators were arrested in Melbourne yesterday after hundreds of people ignored social restrictions to protest the city's stage 4 lockdown. Victorian police arrested 15 people and issued over 150 fines to protesters who initially gathered at the Shrine of Remembrance before marching to and around Albert Park. Victorian police said it was disappointing that around 200 people put the lives of Victorians at risk. The state reported 76 new coronavirus infections and 11 deaths yesterday, as the situation in Australia's hotspot for the disease continued to gradually improve after nearly 5 weeks of a hard lockdown in the state's capital, Melbourne. Meanwhile, the Chinese mainland reported 10 new COVID-19 cases yesterday, all imported, which brought the total number of imported cases to 2,573. Of the newly imported cases, 3 were reported in Guangdong and Shanxi provinces each, 2 in Shanghai and 1 in Fujian and Gansu provinces each. Among all the imported cases, 2,397 had been discharged from hospitals after recovery and 176 remained hospitalized, with 2 in severe condition. No deaths have been reported from the imported cases. As of yesterday, the total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases on mainland China had reached 85,122, including 186 patients who are still being treated, with 2 in severe condition.
Now, Brexit is back in the news. UK's chief Brexit negotiator David Frost has said that the government is not scared of walking away from talks without a trade deal, ready to come into force in 2021. He has told media that the UK would leave the transition agreement, which sees it follow many EU rules, come what may in December. In contrast, he said Theresa May's team had blinked and had its bluff called. EU negotiator Michel Barnier has said he is worried and disappointed about a lack of concessions from the UK. Informal talks between him and the UK side failed to find a breakthrough, and an 8th round of informal, or in fact formal, negotiations begins on Tuesday. Both sides want a deal agreed next month in order to have it signed off by politicians on both sides of the Channel by the end of the transition period on the 31st of December. Typhoon Haishin drew closer to Japan's southern mainland today, prompting authorities to recommend evacuation and warn of potentially record rainfall, unprecedented wind, high tides and large ocean swells. Local TV showed footage of strong wind, high waves and closed stores at Amami as typhoon approached. National broadcaster NHK reported that more than 8,000 homes in the wider Amami Oshima Island and 3,000 homes in Okinawa had lost power due to the typhoon. Authorities urged early evacuation for more than 200,000 people. The typhoon is forecast to have sustained winds of up to 252 kilometers per hour by tomorrow. Typhoon Haishin follows Typhoon Maisak, which smashed into the Korean peninsula on Thursday, leaving at least 2 dead and thousands temporarily without power. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.